before it was time. Welcome to Live, Love, and Marry Wiser, where our mission is in our name. Wow, this day is so fantastic. I don't know why I hit live before it was time to go live, but if y'all are here, welcome. It's nice to have you. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs 4:7 that wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. So we plan and prepare for you to access wisdom when you come on these programs. We have wonderful guests and hosts that share their thoughts, and we are excited to have some beautiful guests today, the wives of the husbands that were on last week. And if you haven't seen that episode, then you should look above Renee's head later, and that card will be there. Renee, how are you?
I am doing good. I'm doing really good. And I'm really excited for today's conversation, just as I was for last week's, which was fantastic. So if anybody missed it, I do encourage you to go back and watch it, especially the young men, because the gentleman came really strong last week. But for tonight, with us talking to the wives, I'm really excited to have this conversation, not just for me as a grown unmarried person, but for all the young ladies who are looking forward to marriage and who just want a little bit of information to help get them started. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Cool. Well, I am as well. You know that I am on this intentional dating journey. And we don't have our little flag today, but our slide, but I'm just going to give you the update. I told you last week that I was going to an event, and it was a 1920s style business award dinner. So people were dressed in 20s flapper outfits and Chicago style jazz club and all of those things. So I got my flapper dress, and I don't have a picture of that, but maybe I'll show you that another day.
You were
And
cute.
I was cute and had my little feather and headband and the whole thing. I just went all the way in, and I had a great time. And the reason that I had a great time is because I decided to have a great time. I
Love
went, and I was nervous because I didn't know anyone and I was by myself. So I didn't have anyone to talk to unless I actually spoke to someone. And so, you know what I did? I just walked up and spoke to people. And it was crazy, and it was totally outside of my comfort zone. But I did it because I want to do some things differently. And in order to be different, you have to do things differently. So I didn't meet my husband there, but I did meet some great business people there, and I did some networking. And so I actually have one guy asked to schedule a meeting with me, and some other people were like, "Oh, I'm going to listen to the podcast, or I'm going to call about this or call that." So I was excited about that. So that is the lowdown on the dating updates.
That's a big deal. And I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, it was a big deal. So thank you. Want to just update you on the book. We're not going to play the trailer today, but the book has returned from the editor. I have made most of the updates. We are actually, I have someone else who is the coach. She's reading it and doing some additional edits. I'm updating those, and the goal is to get it to the formatter tomorrow. What that means is that if she can get it back to us, and she's been knocking these out for the group, and she already has most of what I need, so she just has to have the final product in order to make it fit. If she can do this by Friday, that means we can hit publish on Friday. And that means that it doesn't publish the same day because they have to do a review of it before, but hopefully by Monday, it will be live.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Hopefully it'll be live. If there are any changes to that, then I'll let you know. But well, actually, I'm saying not this Monday, but the following Monday, because I have to get the proof copy back. So I'll show you hopefully I'll show you the book, the actual book in my hand, and then we'll hit go live. So that's the update on the book. And just let me mention, it's a devotional and journal for women. It's called Pray It Forward for women who choose to fight on their knees. It's a 31-day fasting and praying, and then 31 days of praise. So it's 62 days in all. And you will fast and pray for a specific man in your life, whether that's your husband or brother or son, father, whoever. And what we also want to do, I'll just drop this to you right now. On January 1st, anyone who has you can join whether you have the book or not, but it would be advantageous to have it because you wouldn't really know what we're talking about. We're actually going to go live in the mornings, every morning for 31 days, and talk about the topic of the day and do a little devotional. It won't be the same exact thing that I wrote, but it'll be around that. And it also won't be only me. I'm going to ask some other people, actually some people that are here right now, I'm going to ask them to take a day. So Sandra, Onita, Renee, look out. Raquel, look out for that request coming. But awesome. I would love for you all to get the book and join us. And we'll have, even more precise dates. Prayerfully by next Tuesday, I'll be able to tell you that the book is going to be published on this day. We're going to have a special sale. So for the first 7 days, if you get the book, it's going to be $10 off whatever the final price is, which we don't know, but it's going to be under $10. I'll just tell you that it will definitely be under $10 for you to get that book. So you can get more than one if you want to. So I'm excited about that. And so now, I guess the final thing I should mention is our new Afterwise. It's our recording that we do after the live show, and we are now making it open to viewers who might want to join us in that conversation, because the conversation gets as rich after the broadcast ends as it is while it's on. And so I will drop a link for you to be able to get into that. Before we end the broadcast, I'll drop the link. So you click, there's only limited spaces. So you want to click quick so you can be a part of that conversation. We do record it, and that will be played at a later time. I'm excited about that. So with all of that being said, let's get to the good stuff. A good question just came across my desk. Next Tuesday, this actually is the last official, but we are having our special Friday night program this Friday at 6:15, same time, where we have the couples that we've heard from the husbands. Now we're going to hear from the wives. We're actually going to have the couples together, and we're going to have a super duper episode of Live, Love, and Marry Wiser, and it will be the season finale. So we'll go on our hiatus. I'll talk more about that later. But now let's get to the conversation. And I have with me Sandra, Onita, and Raquel. Now you all know Onita because she's one of the hosts of this program. And if you saw you are on YouTube and you see our new banner, it has all the ladies of Live, Love, and Marry Wiser on there. And so we're excited about that. But Onita is one of our hosts. And then we have Raquel, who is Ben's wife, and Sandra, who is Tommy's wife. And just like we did last week, I'm going to give them each a few minutes to just kind of talk about how they met and their version of how they met and just kind of give a context of their marriage starting off. And Sandra, I'm going to start with you since I started with Tommy last week.
All right. Outdoor concert. Lots of people. And I was there with a group of friends and family. It was about 6 or 7 young ladies, and he walked by and smiled. And I was like, oh, but he couldn't be looking at me because, I don't know, I was just in a T-shirt and big old shorts. I wasn't trying to be cute like some of the other girls. And so, but every time I looked over, he was looking at me. I was like, oh, my goodness. So after a little time, I went to get some snacks or something. And when I came back, he was walking towards me, and I was like, oh. And then this guy walked right in front of him. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so he was trying to talk to me. And I was like, I'm with that guy behind you. I was pointing at Tommy. And the rest is history. That was like 36 years ago.
That is so cool. And I was hoping you were going to tell the same story he told, but I'm like, that doesn't happen all the time. He said the same thing, but I wanted to hear it from your perspective.
Oh, yeah. That was on a Sunday, July 26th.
Wow.
1987. And that was Sunday. Monday, we exchanged numbers. Monday, he took me to dinner and walked me to the door and was like, "You're going to make me marry you." And I was like, okay. And then, so I had to go back to school, and I didn't want to go back to school because I was like, it's him. And my mother was like, "You're getting out of here. You're going back to Hampton University." And so I did. And on the weekends, he came every weekend. And then in October, it was after the summer. Then in October, he drove to Hampton every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And so 6 months of dating, 3 months, we planned their wedding. And then that was that. So 9 months. Mm-hmm.
For context, for those who don't live in Virginia, how far away is Hampton?
I guess less than 2 hours. He worked at night, and then when I got up to go to class in the morning, he was there.
Wow.
He said, "I'm tired of leaving you here." That was, on the weekends. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And he said, "I guess I'm either going to have to drive there every day or I'm going to have to move there." And I said, okay. And he drove every day. He drove every day.
That is amazing. Okay. I want to just dig a little bit deeper before I go to Onita. What made you know that it was him? Because that's the question that people always ask, like, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? All he did was smile at you. Like, how did you know?
If I had the answer for that, I probably would have written a book or something a long time ago. It was just different. It was just different. Like, people say love at first sight, and it's not really real. I don't know. It was just something. I don't know if it was the way that he looked at me or the way he was. I don't know, because it's not like he was the first guy that pursued me either. So I don't know. It was just something unique.
Wow.
And so he said what he meant, and he meant what he said, and I was here for that. I don't know. Even if I look back and I think, what if I wasn't on board? And I was like, he was stalking me. He showed up every day.
It definitely would have been a different perspective.
But I'm telling you,
he would need to be arrested if he showed up all the way in Hampton every day.
Every day, And I just remember, I don't know who told my mom about it, but she was like, "Listen, you better get your education. I didn't see you there for that boy to be, type of thing." So I don't have an answer other than it was just a unique feeling compared to other, men that I had been interested in or who seemed interested in me.
So question, Sandra. First of all, I didn't think your story could get any sweeter. I've never heard this extended portion of it. So I love it. But so you're saying there was just something there. Was it from the day at the park, or was it like the first conversation that Monday when you guys went out to eat? Like, when did it click for you that this was my guy?
No, it was like our eyes met. But then there was something in me that was like, he couldn't be looking at me because I wasn't dressed. Like the other ladies, they were dressed,
but you are beautiful.
Well,
Yes.
I'm like, you've been married 36 years and you still look like you look. So I'm like, you're still beautiful.
well, thank you. And that's what he says. But listen, I left the hospital. My niece was born on the 25th, and that's why I can, remember specifically the 26th of July. And so I left the hospital and went to the park to hear this band that my sister used to sing with. And so when he looked, but our eyes met, and then I was like, no, he couldn't be looking at me, And so then when I looked again, he was looking at me. And so it was just like, it was like a cute, flirty little thing, but there was something that just was resonating a little bit deeper. And so when the band was gone, everybody was gone. We stood out there for hours talking, and he could have killed me. He could have kidnapped me.
That would have been a fun story.
I was just lost in the conversation, Wow. And so I told my sister, I think I met my husband. And she was like, I don't want to hear that. I just had a baby. I'm in pain. I don't want to hear, but I was like, I think I met my husband. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, Sunday then Monday. He was just like there, and he stayed there. He was there too much. My mother was like, why is he always here? What's the rush? She kept saying, what's the rush? What's going on? And I was like, I don't know.
It just is. It just is.
Yeah, little did she know.
Yeah.
No. All right, Onita. I mean, you got a great story that we already heard.
Yes, I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but I'll tell a couple of parts of it.
Yeah.
Sandra, I love that story. I've known y'all so long. I mean, I'm telling you, Tommy said he's going to pursue his wife. Okay.
He did. He said, it goes once and it goes after it.
Listen, he said, ain't no mountain high enough.
Well, he didn't have to go through all that. She was just like, I'm with him. She was like, he's like, I'm with him. I'm like, okay.
That's right.
I would say, yeah. So you guys kind of heard my story, how Victor and I actually decided to go on a date, and I may have shared too a little bit just about how I really could not stand him initially, just being with his friends or whatever, because I just thought, what I grew to love later as just being confident. I just thought, oh, you're just being, why is everybody around him and hanging on to every word? And he ain't that funny, like that, And of course, I was dating somebody at the time who wasn't for me. And so I wasn't even feeling that good about myself. So I really couldn't appreciate that. But I was going to say, kind of answering one of the things you asked, Sandra, how did you know? I would say for me too, that I kind of knew on our first conversation, that first night of us actually talking, two things. One, even us going on our first date, his dad who raised him died suddenly. And I think we had gone on our first date at this point. No, we hadn't gone on our first date. We had talked we started like flirting a little bit. I came to work one day, he wasn't there. And I asked somebody, oh, where's Victor? I was used to seeing him there. And again, I'm just going to say this for the record. I wasn't looking for him. I just happened to walk through his department in Sears, and I didn't see him with his boys. Okay. Okay.
Hoping he would look for her.
Right. He was like, oh, where's his boy at? And the friend told me that his father had passed. So I called him, and back then everybody still used a home voicemail machine that, you push the button and can hear it loud. And so I just called him just to check in and say, hey, how are you doing? I'm so sorry. I heard your father passed. Praying with your family, whatever. And I just left it as that because I experienced loss like that too. My stepdad who raised me, and I just wanted to check on him. And so when he got back, immediately he called me. That's when we kind of set up our first date. And he told me later on too, that's kind of how he knew more of my heart. He knew I was this girl. He knew personality wise, I just was kind of bubbly, laughed at everything he said and everybody else, because I just love to laugh anyway. But that kind of let him know my heart. Okay, she's a little bit different. But then when we did have our first conversation, we were on the phone for hours. We started right when the Quiet Storm came on every night. They played, that Smokey Robinson Quiet Storm song. So I know, every night around that time, and we'd be on that thing for hours to the point we fall asleep. One of us, we want to hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead. And we'd be like, just hearing each other breathing on the phone and hang up. But I ended up talking to them. There was a comfort with him that I talked about stuff I'd never talked about with anybody before. I could be myself, truly, the flaws and all. I could share some fears as well as desires. And we shared a lot of the common goals we have for each other. Like I wanted in my life, he wanted those things too. And that's kind of how I knew. Taylor said you was looking for my dad. That's right. But I kind of knew that's from that. Like I could be who I could be myself. And I remember one of my teachers in school, I go into a Christian school, our senior year, matter of fact, that year, one of our Bible classes was on the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Which then I didn't know God was helping to lay the groundwork even then for us. Because there was stuff I learned in there, just the premise that we are totally wired different than men. We see things different, our perception at times, kind of what we like to do as women, be a home improvement committee, fixing things, changing them. And it was so great that she gave me all of that. So I kind of went to the relationship with I had a better perspective on how to be in a relationship and be okay in being this person from Venus and allowing him to be that person from Mars in a sort of sense, because we are wired different. So, but it gave us the groundwork for that. The other thing was my grandmother, like old school, she was big on find out how he treats his mother, seeing how a man treats his mother, treats his grandmother, woman in his life, and he happened to live with his grandmother, says a lot about him. So he'll tell you now, if you compliment his outfits, he'll go, thank Onita, so for any ladies looking like, I want him to be dressed, skinny jeans, because that's what people wear now. I want him looking exactly 10 out of 10 every time. Those things were not as important. We saw each other in our work clothes, so there was not much to give. But him telling me he lived with his grandmother, me knowing that, and Sandra, he as the world is small, he knew Sandra's mother because just about every Wednesday, his grandmother wanted to go to U-Crops, and she had to be there at the crack. Like the store wasn't open. Okay. At 6 o'clock, they opened at 6:30. She and like 6 other senior citizens were at that door waiting for U-Crops to open. And actually, years later, we found out when Sandra's mom came to church once, she was there. She would actually be there at the same U-Crops. But I knew these things about him. He would tell me taking his grandmother to the grocery store, and he washed her hair and greased her scalp. And
U-Crops is our Publix here in Florida.
Yes. But back then they used to also roll your card out to their car for you, But just hearing those things, hearing how he cared for her, knowing he too was the older sibling that had to, as well as me, be kind of even in the home, both of our parents in the home, helping to rear our siblings, let me know that part of me I could share with them and not feel shame about, and that we share that common ground too, and experience. So
I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's so great. And I think that there was like some real tangible things that you were like, this is why it's him, All right, Raquel.
All right. So we met sometime in high school. I don't remember if it was sophomore year or junior year, but basically we had a mutual friend. We had this Cuban friend, Mikey. He went to my Brazilian church, which is really weird. I till this day, I don't really know how he showed up there, but he ended up there, and we took him in as one big family. So we love him till this day. And he was like, hey guys, we would do skits. We would travel all throughout Florida just doing skits. It was like our youth group. And so he's like, hey guys, I have a friend. He just broke up with his girlfriend. Is it okay if I, bring him to church? We're like, yeah, man, the more the merrier. And so that's when he started bringing Ben. And so I met Ben through our team. We're called FOG, Friends of God. And but at that time, he had just broken up with someone. I think I was dating a guy too. So we just knew each other, nothing more, nothing less. Until years later, at this point, he was already at Southern. And I was wanting to transfer to Southern. because I grew up going to public schools, and I was like, I want to at least have some form of like Adventist Christian education. And so college is where I'm at. And my parents said that you'll only move out if you go to college or if you get married. I was like, bet I'm going to Southern where I can do both. And so I was in the hopes of trying to find my Christian Adventist husband and also moving out. And so the only person I knew there was Ben. And so at that point, he must have been, I don't know, might have also been junior or sophomore year of college, either one. And actually it was a junior year of college. And so I started messaging him. I was like, hey man, like, how do you like Southern? I'm thinking about transferring, probably like the following semester. So starting in January. And so we kind of started talking from that point on. That was like the first time that we like intentionally started talking. And so it would be to the point that like we would send each other like little Snapchats, like, oh, outfit of the day. Oh, I'm driving to work, driving to school, or something like that. And it got to a point that we started messaging each other. So every night we would do something called question of the night. So it'd start off, when's your birthday? What's your favorite color? What car do you drive? What's your least favorite class? You know, stuff like that. And eventually, as the weeks, the days went by, the questions started getting a little bit more like pointed toward like a direction where it's like, these are more intentional questions. And so it'd be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or do you plan on having kids or stuff like that? And so as like we would go back and forth on the questions, like the stuff that I would ask him and he would reply back would slowly be like, little check marks. Okay, Ben, I see you. Wow, I didn't know. And so it started like evolving. And then it got to a point where I found out I wasn't going to go to Southern due to like financial stuff. And so when that happened, I remember I stopped messaging him because I was like, I'm not going to go. Like, what's the point? And so I stopped messaging him. And during dinner, I think I went like 2 or 3 days without messaging him. And so we would message on Snapchat, and Snapchat had like these streaks. So if you kept talking to the same person, you would get like, 105-day streaks. And so I had destroyed our streaks because I stopped talking to him. And so that's when he messaged me like, hey, are you all right? Like, I haven't heard from you. And I looked at him like, dang. And so I wouldn't reply until one day I was sitting down having dinner and I get a phone call from him. And I look at my phone, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's calling me. What do I do? Why is he calling me? Because I've dated like, I've dated guys in high school. It's just like those flings, high school flings. And so guys, they didn't really call. I would be like, hey, can we talk on the phone? I was like, no, it's just text. And so he's like the first guy to actually call me, and we're not even dating. And we've just been talking for like 2-3 months at this point. And so I looked at it. I didn't answer. I was like, okay, I'm just going to finish my dinner and I will call him back later. And so I went outside and I called him. I was like, hey, everything all right? He's like, yeah, I just wanted to see, are you all right? I haven't heard from you in 3 days. And I was like, yeah, just a lot of stuff going on. I didn't really tell him until later. But like that small little detail, what like touched me, I was like, wow, he actually cares about me. And we're not even dating. So like from that point on is when I started like feeling this little spark. It's like, wow, like he took his time out of his busy schedule from his friends to like, hey, I'm going to call her. I'm going to check up on her. And so then we started dating December. And our whole relationship was pretty much long distance. So we started dating December. 11 months later, we got engaged, and then 8 months later, we got married. So it was all long distance, and so when we could, I would try to fly up to visit him, or he would try to fly down or drive down. There was one time for my birthday, he drove down 9 hours on Friday and then went back on Sunday. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this man. So I was like, I would not do that because I hate driving, but but one thing I immediately knew that he was the one. I think the phone call thing was like the first, it was like when the flame started, it was really small. But then like I started getting to know him, I started realizing that he is like a loving, caring guy, which is what I wanted. So, small background detail. My grandfather growing up, I've heard stories of him being very verbally and physically abusive towards my grandmother and then towards my dad. And so I would always get my dad telling me, like, when you grow up, find a guy that loves you, treats you well, and respects you, and also brings peace to the house. And I saw every single one of those in Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that I brought Ben over to the house, which was our very first date, so he was home from Christmas break, my grandmother opened the door. My grandmother speaks nothing of English. She opened the door, and then she looked at him, and she was like, "What are you studying?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm studying theology." And my grandmother looked at me and said in Portuguese, like, "Raquel, he's your husband. I just know it." And I was like, "Oh, Grandma, stop." And like, my grandmother for years had been praying for me to marry a pastor. And so when she saw him for the first time walk through the door, she's like, "It's him. You guys have a good night. Go on your date." But yeah, that's a little bit about Ben and I.
No, I love that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was so significant to me is that a lot of times, when we get caught up in the romance of Hollywood and all of these movies and all that's happened, there are all of these big things and dramatic things and also, that make this person fall in love. And then every single one of you are just like, it was just this small, it was this thing, it was just this, and it's just, that's to me what real godly love is like. Because even though, Sandra, you were like, I just knew, it still was time that you spent with him to keep knowing, like when you saw him, you knew, oh yeah, I'm going to hang out with this dude. But then it didn't take you long in conversation to be like, yes, this is the person. And so there is not this dramatic lightning bolt that hits you. Well, Sandra is kind of like that, but after the lightning bolt, they actually had conversation. They grew together. They talked. They figured out that this is a real thing. But all those small little things, sometimes that you don't even know matter to you until someone does them, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that phone call was for real. I'm tired of guys texting me, or even him with Onita, expressing appreciation for her phone call. All of that is just kind of like, okay, these are things that we don't often articulate, but that we really do desire.
Well, when he said to me on the first date, "You're going to make me marry you," certainly no one had ever said anything like that. So, I don't know.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. No, I was going to say that's a lot better than him saying, "God told me you're going to be my wife."
Yeah, that's a little off-putting, because until he tells me, then I'm not really down for that.
Exactly.
What were your expectations of marriage once you decided to be married? Raquel, I'm gonna start with you.
I feel like, to me, I was really looking for like a best friend that I can share stuff with and just like stay home and just like not do anything, because I'm a major introvert, or at least I was. But also like someone that I can share life with, and just be there for each other, just be like a shoulder to cry on or someone to vent to. Yeah.
Okay. Onita?
And you said this is once we decided to get married, not pre-dating. Okay.
You can tell both if those are different.
I would say some things shifted because again, you learn more, you see more, and then your expectation change. I would say some things, some communicated expectations were, because at the time, I don't know if people say it a lot now. At the time, what was going around a lot, and I would say the church I would say dynamics or culture was the 3 P's, be the provider, the protector, and the priest of the home. And so I kind of came into marriage expecting some of those things. However, I did know for us, I brought him into the church. He went seeing me like Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter with his grandma. I was in there regularly. And so I didn't push that as much on him as far as expecting him to be the priest of the home, but definitely us being able to worship together, me being free to worship and him support me. I would say the expectation was that we would be good friends, and we became best friends, that we would do things together. I had my biggest supporter. He was my biggest cheerleader. I expected that and expected him to know that I would be his biggest cheerleader and supporter, as well as far as protection, because I didn't have a lot of that growing up.
Mhm.
And being somebody who had my back in front, who saw things that I may not have seen because I'm just, out there, and I've trusted. I mean, I was just more trusting of everybody, especially if I felt like you were in church, or I could just put my heart all out there for getting into hospital. And, not everybody can be trusted on certain levels.
Right.
And so he actually helped with that a lot. And of course, just somebody that loved me, like have a safe space to feel loved, to be, I want to say adored, but I guess even that, to be reminded that, he's attracted to me. I expected that, to be attracted to my husband and him be attracted to me as well. And to just build life together, like be partners and build something together.
That's awesome. I love that. Sandra, who is Tommy's wife, but we don't have that label on her because you can go out. We'll get you straight if you. But we don't.
Okay. I was in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think back then the expectation was, and maybe now, to meet your husband in college. Well, I had not. I had a lot of friends. The majority of my friends were males, but I just needed and wanted someone that I could trust,
Mm-hmm.
and someone that was completely unlike my dad. So my father was a provider, but he wasn't a good father or husband. So I just, in getting to know him, and let me say also, he had been married before. So he had sole custody of his son.
Mm-hmm.
So his son was 7 at the time, and I fell hard for him. So hard. I was like, and so that said a lot to me, because back then, men didn't have sole custody of the children, right?
Right.
And so so he had sole custody, and we just spent a lot of time together. But my focus was, I just needed to make sure that this man was, that was my plan growing up, that I need somebody completely opposite of my father, completely opposite of that was like, I didn't care about anything else. And so because he is 7 years older than I am, because my mother was not a fan. He was 7 years older than and he had a son, and he was divorced. So my mother was like, oh no, she was just really, really not happy with the way things were going, because she had other plans for me. She wanted me to meet a man in college and blah, 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 blah. And that's somebody already, she said, tied down and so on and so forth. But my heart was saying, this guy right here. So
this is the one.
Yeah. And so my expectations were to be happy, of course, and to build a life together if I found a husband. But it was definitely just a completely different makeup than my dad.
Can you guys say a little bit more about that? Because I'm thinking about even myself as like a younger lady wanting to be married. And, if you were to have asked me back then about my expectations about marriage, I would think in my naivete that I would want to, or I would expect a happy, healthy marriage and to, live happily ever after when you find that right person. So, I mean, I can imagine, yes, you have found your best friend. Yes, you found someone who's a great caretaker. You found someone who's a great comforter and support. But, to that young girl who says, I'm looking for, or I'm expecting a perfect relationship, what would you guys say to her?
And see, my head wasn't there. Like their stories were far more together than mine. I just wanted somebody who was not like my dad. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, when you get married, the expectation is to live happily ever after, but and I certainly didn't understand really about that we could be best friends because I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I saw the complete opposite of that. I never saw affection and somebody holding the door and all those things. And Tommy was doing all of that, but I hadn't seen that. So that was not my expectation. Happily ever after, yes, but I just felt like we would figure it out. I just knew I had this strong connection with him and I was going for it. I was okay. Yeah, I didn't have my head together and thinking, all these things, because I remember him saying to me, "I'm not a day at the beach," and again, I was like, "Okay,
as long as you're not my daddy, I'm good."
Okay, that was all I was thinking because I just, felt like you work at it and you grow together, and that's what we did because we hadn't known each other long. We hadn't known each other very long at all. And I was 22, 21 to just turning 22, trying to get out of school and didn't want to have to go back to mama's house because mama was not playing, and I turned into her.
There's this pastor. He has a podcast. He isn't really pastor anymore, but I just would still consider him that. And he says that when you get married, you're marrying the person. You're marrying the person that they are, but you're committing to the person that you don't even know that they're gonna be.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what is gonna change or what's gonna happen. You just know that based on what you know now, you want to be with that person when they become whoever. And I never heard it put like that before, but I just thought that was really so true because nobody, even the worst person, stays exactly the same, or even the best person, they didn't stay exactly the same just because life changes you in many different ways. And those sometimes are some people who even don't have a growth mindset, as they say, but just external things change the nature of who you are and what you do in your relationship and all that. So I just think that's important as we are delving into for single people, that of course you want someone who has the values that matter to you, because values don't change. People do, but your values, if you're, obviously situations can happen, but typically your core values are just who you are. And so once we know that we're in alignment there, then a lot of other things we can address and deal with effectively. But Raquel or Anita, did you have an answer to what Renee said or any further insight?
I want to add to, I did, but now you went to a different way, and I think it's more concrete to go there about seeing the potential, right, of what it can become. Because you're right, we do come into it not knowing first of all, a lot of times you've not even seen the worst side of that person. Conflict brings that out typically. Or depending on if they, what it is, it could be their Lakers team lost or something. They may be really into the sport, and then you go, oh my gosh, who is that person? A lot of times you go into it, you don't see the potential, or you can't see the potential. So, and we're there, I think, women, and I heard a man say this before, about we kind of can help pull that out of them and encourage that out of them, as well. If we do see it, I think God has wired us to do that. But I've also seen people stay in marriages or either decide to marriage only on the potential they're able to see in the guy, and he can't see it, that he either doesn't see himself and receive, and they stay. I'm gonna say stay. That's all they ever see is potential. He never gets to that.
He never fulfills his potential.
Right, never fulfills it. Or they fall in love with the idea of marriage and not the reality of marriage. And this is why we sometimes see these extravagant weddings, and then people are divorced 6 months later, because marriage is work. You have to be intentional about it. That word, has became more of a catchword more recently. I would say there were some things the naivety of us, only God kept us. Okay. Some days I know for a fact we were just so naive about expecting that you get into the marriage, and thank God of having those certain, I do totally agree with having those core value system, because that is concrete. Those are your non-negotiables. Those are things that I can't put in him and he can't put in me. Those core values we kind of come into the relationship with.
Right.
But and then some other things, we kind of that we'll grow into, but understanding that there's those things are non-negotiables. I think, having the definitive mindset going into it. Oh, these are things I have to do. I have to have, or I'm not going to back down on. I would say for my husband, Victor, and I, some of those things came out in our conversations early on, so that there was no hidden agendas, or either like I didn't have to. I would say I didn't have to. I didn't allow myself to, because we both had experienced loss suddenly. So we kind of went into it talking about some of this stuff, harder stuff early on, because we had made up in our minds we weren't going to waste each other's time. Whereas some people may feel like they're going to play the field or do whatever. We kind of went into it early, talking about expectations, as well as talking about our value system and things we weren't going to settle for, and things we would be okay and willing to compromise, because we had experienced great losses, and suddenly we knew that time wasn't promised to any of us. Like, we don't know what the time is, but we were not going to waste each other's time either. Trying to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And I think sometimes people, what they say, have the candidate on for so long for the first few months, that representative, and they don't really be themselves. And I think, again, what I'm hearing from both ladies tonight is that they were themselves. That kind of was the glue, and for myself too, that kind of was the glue that binding us together with our spouses, just in dating, that we were all able to be ourselves. And so my advice would be to women out there, and I talk to my daughters in particularly, be true to who you are, love yourself, know who you are, know what your value system, your core system are, what your core values are, and don't compromise on those things, because when you do, trust me, you kind of lie to yourself. And you feel it. I know if I go back and I said I would never do, you do feel it. But then also you're not helping your spouse or whoever you're dating not get the reality too of what you want. So you're actually laying down a foundation of possible shock to them later when you come and spring it out and go, oh, by the way, I actually don't like that you do that, or I don't drink. I know I kept doing it all the time while we were dating, but now that we're engaged, I no longer, I don't drink. I find it repulsive. My dad did it. I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you need to.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, I think that's really good. And Raquel, did you have anything to add?
I was just going to add something really quick to kind of backtracking what Renee was saying in regards to like those people that kind of have like that expectation of like a perfect fairy tale marriage. No. I mean, yes, but at least, I don't know about you ladies, for me, our first year of marriage was hard. We had a lot of factors that went into it, and like we were looking at our friends like, how are you guys, are you guys okay? Because like we're fighting on like cats and dogs, like any small little thing, like shower curtain left open, oh my gosh. And so it was definitely a learning process for the both of us, learning to live together, because we learned that we're really good at long distance. Like long distance, we got it down. But once we put the both of us together, in Michigan with seasonal depression, missing home, missing school. It's just like it was really hard. It was really hard. So like I was expecting like the first year to be like that beautiful 1 year where we're like lovey-dovey, like getting to know each other, like putting like whipped cream on each other's noses, some little crap. At least
Adorable.
it was really us really learning each other, who we are together as a couple, and like what triggers us, and like how to even talk to each other when
Yes.
we had arguments. And so I don't know, for us it wasn't that glam, but we
Yeah.
worked it out. If anything, that made us even stronger for our second, third, fourth, fifth year, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess other people might have it different. Maybe their first year. I've talked to friends that their first year of marriage was significantly better than their second year of marriage. So I don't know, but in marriage, there's always going to be its ups and downs. So there's never going to be an always glamorous, beautiful fairy tale Cinderella Prince Charming type of thing, because it's not going to happen. Yeah. That's why you got to work together. You got to work together to know each other and to learn from each other. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Thank you.
For sure.
And this comment, potential is dangerous. I wanted to kind of refer back to that, just make a comment on something Onita said about potential. And I think she made it clear, but I just want to put another pin on that, because a lot of times my former pastor is Pastor Ben, but before that is Pastor Alex, and he preached a sermon about dating and singleness and trying to find a partner. And he said, don't date potential, date patterns.
Mm.
And I had to put that in he had four other things that he said that also, Steve, I can't remember those because this one stuck out so much. It was the first thing. And I hear so many people who are looking at potential or talking about potential, or he's this or that, and you can tell that it's like, is that person, what is their pattern? Pattern of their behavior. That's what you can rely on going forward, not their potential. Let's pray, let's hope that they change, but don't marry them until they do, because the pattern is what you're going to be living with, not the potential.
Yes.
So we want to make sure, and I think that, Onita said it, I want to reiterate that potential has to be being acted on, because that becomes their pattern. They may not have reached whatever place they want to be, but you see them disciplined and working toward that, not to impress you, but that's just because of who they are. So,
for sure.
Okay, I have a question. The Proverbs 31 women.
Girl, talk about it.
We hear about this. We're Christian, we're in the Bible, and there's a whole chapter after verse 10 to 31 is about how wonderful she is. She's a great mother, and she's a great wife, and she's a great business lady, and she takes care of her servants, and she's in the cold, and she's making stuff, and she's building stuff, and she's selling houses, and she's doing the whole thing. She's cleaning the house.
Amen.
Okay, you all, is the Proverbs woman realistic for us today? Can we be a Proverbs 31 woman? Let me start with Raquel, and then I'll go to Sandra, then Onita.
Man, you should have given me some more time to think on that one.
I think everyone has the I need more time look. So
yeah, we all alike.
I just went with you.
Oh, well, thanks. What I have to say, if anything, I'll probably let them go now, come back. But that's a good question, because till now, pretty much now, my husband has been like the sole provider, because I was going to school full time up at Andrews, and then I was at school again last semester at UF, and so he was providing the whole time. But while he was bringing in the money, I would do my part when it came to cooking, cleaning. Obviously, we would have some stuff that we divide some chores down. Like for instance, like since the very beginning, he does the laundry. I put all the folding. I do all the folding and putting away. I don't like doing the laundry. He doesn't like folding and putting away. Works out fine. Compromise.
Mhm.
But I think it's possible being a Proverbs 31 woman. I do. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I'm telling you, that's a question.
It is a question. It is a question. You know, I support any woman that one. But like I see Ben as like the head of the household. You know, he is the spiritual leader. Yeah, that's all I got for now.
Okay, we'll come back if you have
Yeah,
anything.
no, come back.
Sandra, I'll go to you.
Oh, so you got to do what works for you in your relationship in your home.
All right.
So I think that's an ideal, right? And you come up with what works for you, like traditional. So would you say that means she's like today's traditional woman, or are roles traditional for what a man does and what a woman? I don't know. I think that you and your partner figure out what's going to work for your relationship, right? So like the spiritual piece, you know, the husband being the priest, or you know, we had a little struggle with that because we were not Adventists, and we had both been raised in a Baptist church. And so when the Lord brought this whole Adventism thing into my life, because Christ is ahead of my life, I had to make that move.
Yes.
Like, sir, you are the head of the home, but Christ is the head of my life. So what I have got to do. And, you know, we had children, and I don't know if he took me seriously or not, because we were very active in church together. We, you know, singing and Girl Scouts and different ministries and everything. We were very active. So he felt maybe blindsided or maybe even betrayed, because, you know, a family that prays together stays together.
Right.
And here I was going, saying, and I'm taking your children with me. So, and that was the first time that he and I were like this. And it was about our relationships with Christ in church, and which had an impact on our relationship with each other. So I don't know about this ideal. I just know that I had to do what I had to do, right? And so, you know, whether my children were raising up and calling me blessed or not, I don't know. So I certainly know that I did what the Lord told me to do, and then my husband came.
Right.
You know, and so I mentioned the other day, you know, First Peter, that the word says that a wife's godly conversation will convert her husband.
Come on.
And so it wasn't always about me talking, but he says all the time to this day, she never wavered. He says that to me all the time. You never wavered. And he respected and valued and appreciated that. Even if it felt like at some point it was like a betrayal, I believe he felt like at some point, and that because he was the man and the head of the house, he was supposed to be leading us spiritually, right? But so I don't know. This woman, this ideal.
All right.
Because what do you do with yourself if you feel like you're not hitting all the marks? I just need to know, what do you need? What do you need from me, husband? And if it lines up with God says what I can do, then I'm happy to do.
Okay, so before Onita goes, let me share a little additional context. Renee sent me a few videos, but one particular video where a woman was talking, and she said that, you know, people, men, want you to do all this stuff. You got to clean the house, you got to watch the kids, you got to take people to this place, you got to set the doctor appointments, you got this whole list of things, and you still got to look cute and get your nails done, get your hair done, and all that. And then she's like, and that don't even include going to work and bringing now you got to do that too.
Every man doesn't want any.
She lists a good 10 things.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, I know women whose husbands do expect that.
Mm-hmm.
And that you work as well, or you want to work because God has given you a purpose that you desire to fulfill. And maybe your children are grown and whatever, and it becomes overwhelming. So the question then is, well, the Proverbs 31 woman does it. How come you complaining about it?
That's an ideal, I think. Every man doesn't have to have that. Every man doesn't want that. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, if you are not that woman, then the man that wants that is not for you.
Right.
Mm-hmm. They don't tell you all the time until you already stuck. But go
Right.
ahead, Onita.
Right.
You better talk about all that then.
You should.
Yeah.
You should.
I mean, shoot, I know some too that we've been in a conversation with several couples at a table, and the husband being adamant too that his wife underwear and bra must match. Like it had to. And I was like, bruh, that ain't. I'm just gonna be wearing the same two colors all my life because that's all they had for me back then. But they did have those requirements that you would say on the surface is superficial. But I think we got to be realistic with knowing that men are wired different, or not wired completely different. We all want to be attractive to our spouse. So we do want to look good. To Sandra's point, not everybody understands you got to have your hair done, your nails done, whatever. But I will say this new era of men where they're looking at, first of all, the fact that you can go into an app and look at somebody like I shop on Amazon, swipe left or right, and you save some in your cart for later because they're not a 10. They may be a 7, and some of them, my boy Hayden on here, he ain't looking at no 4s. I told him, stop saying no 4s, Hayden, she can buy hair like me, and your face will become a 6. Okay? But my point is, people have become a lot more narcissistic about how they are looking for these things, and people are posting pictures with filters all the time, so they're not even fully showing all the real. So some people are expecting that, but I would say the Proverbs 31 women. For a Christian woman, first of all, context, during that time, she didn't work. Let's be clear, she had help because there was one point, like it was when we were at a church in New England, where this pastor, old school guy from Ghana, he kind of made it seem like you had to. That was the object of every Christian woman's go. We need to strive to be her, and so a lot of us sitting there like, whatever, because ain't no way. And then I had another pastor break it down when he talked about, keeping in mind with what happened back then. She would have had servants in her home that maybe did the cooking and one maybe did the cleaning.
It says in the scripture that she took care of her servants too.
Right. And that one who also
she had people who worked in the house.
She had people who worked in the house, and one who maybe also even helped with the kids so that she could be a great businesswoman and she could be out here, and I think also a ministry leader, and be a good wife to her husband so that she's not so emotionally and physically exhausted from caring for everybody all day long. She couldn't even be a good wife to him because she's so tired. And the time that we live in, I would say, depending on your stewardship, where sometimes some of us are having to work because of the financial decisions we made or have not made, and then you trying to be a wife and a mom, and it's not even that sometimes these expectations are communicated. It's just a thing that women do. Like acts of service is one of my love languages. And so cooking, cleaning, making sure laundry and all this stuff done, that was just part of me showing my love. Now for my husband, he's physical touch. And so when it came later and he's like, you're always saying you're tired. And I'm like, well, I am, because I did all these things. Well, he took a page from the Proverbs 31 book and said, okay, well, we're gonna have somebody come in here and help clean twice a week because I don't care about them dishes. If you too tired, give me a hug later, whatever else, wherever, get to all the bases.
Oh yeah,
He's like, I don't care about them dishes. He's like, leave them in the sink, let them be dirty. That's not like my love language, whatever. So he was able to, that was the gift for me to kind of help me be able to have more time and have more energy later on. But I think it's attainable to an extent, like Sandra said, if for what works for you. I think it's good that the Bible has an example because there are some women who they're striving to do it all. Be a boss, be a good wife, be a great mother. And I think there's nothing wrong with that because we should have something to aspire to. Because if we don't set a goal, you'll spend your days, day after day, and your year not looking back on what did I achieve anything? Did I attain anything? Because we can't, we can't just do life, but are we living? Are we thriving? Are we doing intentional? This is why we have vision boards. This is why we have, journals, and we're setting goals, right? So I think as a wife, and even in your marriage, you have to have the conversation where you're setting some goals, you're having conversations. And so I think there's different aspects of this Proverbs 31 woman that all of us, even sitting here, Raquel's doing education, study, and Sandra study. I went to college. Like, those are things that I think she would have done, being educated, Sandra and I both have owned businesses and doing those things, being a great wife. Every woman both of these ladies are good wives. Sandra's a great mother. I know her children are calling her blessed because she's also a great grandma too. And so those are different parts that we can pull from that to aspire to. I will say, for any woman out there trying to be all of those and feel bad, shame off you. That's not you can't obtain every single thing of that. But I think that it's good that we have an example of somebody doing it all and actually doing it in a godly way. We don't have enough examples where I feel like for my children, their generation of, a lot of their peers are, I don't speak to one of my college daughter. A lot of them are looking more to the Meg Thee Stallions and Cardi B's and all these different people as the
examples of what a woman is.
Right. And so I think to see more women like us who have healthy relationships, who love ourselves, and who can be bosses in their own right, that's the level of the Proverbs 31 woman that I want to accept, set for my girls and other girls that are younger and that are looking to be in any type of serious relationship.
Okay, I love that. And I think that makes sense. I think that, first of all, having help helps. And that's the reality. It's like you care enough about your house being clean and your kids being fed and your husband having to hire somebody to do that if you can. If you're going to be working outside the home. Or there are women who, in fact, I mentioned that I went to this event on last Thursday, and I was talking to this woman, this couple, and just telling her what I did. And she said, well, I'm just a mom. And I was just like, what? No, stop that. Yes. I said, you are not just a mom, and don't ever say that again. I'm telling to this woman that I never met before. And she and her husband was there too. And I don't think that that's his perspective because he didn't give off that vibe. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, don't ever say that. Like, being a mom is one of the most important jobs in the world. Mm-hmm. And there's value in that. And, I get the fact that, unfortunately, our world doesn't value it. They want women to do it, but they don't value it. Mm-hmm. And I said, but you never say that again. You're not just a mom. He's like, you should be like, I'm a mom. What are you? I was like, yes, that's right.
I wonder if she had some other goals in mind though for herself. Maybe she wanted to be something else. Maybe she wanted to be an entrepreneur. Maybe she wanted to be a race car driver, whatever. And she did it. Maybe she put everything else aside to be a wife and a mother. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
he's like the president or CEO. He's like, of a company. I think it might be their company because I think they won an award later. But so obviously there's a lot of time and energy that goes into that. While her husband's sitting at the gate talking about she wonderful, she out here trying to do all this other stuff. But I do think that, you know, one issue that I see is that what women do in the home is not valued the way that it should be.
Correct.
Yes.
I
Yes.
agree with that.
I experienced that firsthand. A lot of people, when I was home for years with my kids, and we had decided that that was the best place for me. One, it didn't make financial sense because all the money I would have been paying for daycare, and if somebody else putting their value system into our kids, them only seeing me, you know, seeing us at the dinner table and then going to bed, we decided I would stay home. But also, I took pride in it. I making sure that my kids, you know, having breakfast in the morning, us as a family sitting at the table, and my husband having a good lunch, and them too, and me teaching them early. You know, I took pride in them hitting milestones and learning to read and all of that. Having a Sabbath meal prepared for us, having their clothes laid out for church, but also being a support for my husband to where he knew home was taken care of when he left for the day. I've been around many couples where the wife is calling all day nagging, Johnny hit Susie, or this can happen, and there's a leak in the roof, and they didn't take care of nothing. So the man is at work, he's trying to slay dragons, and he's getting all these calls. And so I took pride in ensuring that my husband didn't have to hear from me in those situations because I was taking care of the home and all those things. But I did get scrutiny, like little comments, and I think I've said it here, where, you know, if we would have Sabbath dinner and we're after church, or somebody said, you know, other women, I never had a man say it to me. They seem to kind of get it more, especially if you're a man and you work every day and you have to stay home one day with your kid sick. Listen, like, when you come home, because this kid. But I had other women that would literally be like, it must be nice to be you. I wish I could stay home. And I'd be like, you don't understand. My break was when I left the house. Like when I went to work, that's when I got the break. That was easier for me. And not easy, meaning I didn't enjoy being there with my kid, but it was a lot more managing of the home. Like, and my husband used to tell people she's managing a Fortune 500 company. Don't get it twisted.
Right.
Like it's not a cakewalk, and so don't downplay something that used to be a big thing. I would specifically speak about our country because in other countries it still is, but it was what happened. The fathers went out, the mother stayed home, and if you even look at statistics, you'll see. I won't say the morality of our culture kind of demise the more that moms are out the home, and the kids are all just on the bus and daycare and back home. You saw a shift in our core value system
because you had to trust what someone else was teaching or allow someone else to teach your child at very early ages, not at the place where they may be more, even as young people, more firm in what they believe. And I'm not just talking about religious or Christian belief, just anything that you believe. And you're able to pour that into them. Obviously, everyone's not able to do that, but we want to value those who make that choice to do that, because there are sacrifices that come with that as well. Like Sandra was saying, we don't know what dreams this woman might have had.
Yes.
But then she submitted herself to her husband's purpose and to their family. And so we always want to make sure, as women particularly, that we uplift women who are in the home taking care of their kids, and make sure that they understand that we value them. So, all right, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on that too. It was a couple of years ago that I was reading about the Proverb 31 woman, and I remember going through, the list of all of her characteristics and all of the wonderful things that she, did in her life. And I just remember feeling like, oh my goodness, if I literally tried to live up to her standard and do all of the things that she did, well, as I was reading those things, I was just like, the thought almost becomes overwhelming, to try to do all of those things. And then of course, now we're comparing, and it's just like, well, where I stand right now, I fall a little bit less than, and all of that. And Lorraine, you probably remember I had made some Proverbs 31 woman t-shirts, right? Got these t-shirts printed, and there was a spelling error on the front of them, right? And so I was so upset because now, like, I can't sell these shirts at this. I didn't feel like I could. And so it kind of came upon me to say, fine, I'm not going to sell them, but what I am going to do is package them and go out in the community and give these shirts out. And in the package, I put a note in with each t-shirt, basically letting the woman who received the shirt know that, you know, the Proverbs 31 woman is an amazing woman. And I I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of freeing yourself from the guilt of not being just like her. And just letting these women know that if you see her as a perfect woman, you don't have to be perfect. You know, and when we think about her and what she did, number one, she was not describing herself. Somebody else was describing her. What she was doing was living her life. She was living and meeting the needs of those around her in the community. And I think if we focus on just doing that, not being her, but being ourselves and focusing on the needs of those around us, like for you married women, you're talking about your husband, you know, our children, you know, different people and things in the community. I think that we are living to, you know, toward living to that ideal, like you said, Sandra, of that Proverbs 31 woman. I don't have to be her, but I do have to operate in the life and the purpose that God gave me. So when opportunities come, I'm not going to be so selfish so as to say, I just want to be comfortable and lay on the couch and read books and not go out and not do anything. No, somebody needs me and I'm going to do that, you know, but also still being wise enough to know how to, you know, take care of myself in a healthy way as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good because, and I'm going to say this and we're going to move to the next topic. Heads up, it's sex. So just get your mind ready for that. But because part of when I was listening to some people talk about this Proverbs 31 woman, and part of the reality is if you're not married, then half of what she does, you don't even have the opportunity to do. You know? And so I think that what Renee said is living in the ideal of where you are, what that means for you, because your marriage, you've defined what that is because of the conversations and the goals that you all have. Now, what is the ideal for you, Raquel, in this situation versus you trying to be the ideal of what's good for Sandra or Nito or me or Renee? And I think that's part of the challenges with, I want to say women, but men have this problem too, that the problem with comparison is that you're comparing apples and, you know, like cars, like your situation is not the same. So what you do in that situation can't be the same as another person. So, okay. So I asked the men this question last week and I want to ask it to you all. What were you taught about sex growing up, if anything, and how did that affect you positively or negatively when you got married? I'm going to start with Sandra.
What was I taught? I was not taught.
It was going to be.
It was, you know, and so like, I just remember growing up and, you know, I don't know how I never saw my mother disrobed, you know, that was like a thing. And I remember I suffered really bad monthly, like really bad, debilitating cramps. And I got 2 prescriptions from the doctor. One, I can't remember the name, but the other one was birth control.
Same here.
And mercy, that meant I was going straight to hell.
Yes.
And because now I was a promiscuous person.
Yes.
I had these birth control pills. You know what I mean? It was just crazy in my mind because, you know, it was almost like my mother was like, you're not taking those. And I'm like, the doctor said I need, you know, and so it was, just a bad thing. We didn't talk about it. And I think some of that was because of, I'm going to say, my mother's trauma from
Mhm.
her childhood and being married to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
And how did that impact your marriage when you first got married? Or at any point in your marriage?
Very modest. Very modest, you know. It was like it was
What do I say?
I'm a very modest person anyway, right? And so, you know, it was very awkward. It was very awkward. And
Did you have expectations, you as you, not what he wanted or what any, did you have expectations about sex?
Sure. I just remember thinking, like from movies and stuff, you know, I don't want to have to fake an orgasm. I remember. I don't know what it's gonna take for you to make me happy now, but I don't want to have to pretend.
All right. Okay.
I remember that. And you know, and I just
wouldn't even say the O word. Like, I said the men didn't even say the O word last week. They said everything but the O word. They were all around it.
I have not said that.
No, you good. You good. That's part of the issue. You know, no, they were very open, but I was just kidding around, but they didn't actually say that word.
No.
But that's part of the thing that we're trying to break free from.
Yeah, no.
Stop. I mean, the word.
That's a gift. That's a gift from God.
Yes.
I mean, that's part of the whole beauty of sharing a connection with your person. I mean, that's a beautiful thing, and you share that with your spouse, with your husband. Listen. I just remember I was just like, you know, how long is it gonna take for us to figure out, you know, like what's going to work for us, because I wanted to experience this real thing. I didn't want it to be, you know, my faking it or whatever, you know. And so we just experimented, and I was open to that because, I mean, I loved him and he loved me. So I was just like, listen, you know,
together.
I mean, we just did so much growing together. And was thinking when Raquel said about, you know, the first year, oh my gosh, our first year was so hard.
Yes.
It was, listen, y'all, we were only married 2 months when we got pregnant. Now, understand, Tommy had a son from his previous marriage, and he had sole custody. So I became a mama like that at 22. Right. And then we were married 2 months and we got pregnant. And in my 5th month, between my 4th and 5th month, I had a miscarriage. And it was hard. So it was hard. And all he knew how to do at the time was do what he had learned from his father. Just go to work, just go to work, just go to work, provide. And I was like,
no, bruh.
Keep working because the bills got to be paid. You're gonna come home and ain't gonna be nothing here. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, Lord, you know, you're gonna have to help me, because I was looking for the escape hatch. I was looking for a way to get out of this pain. I had lost, you know, I had such a traumatic loss, and Tommy was having a hard time trying to heal me because he couldn't, but he didn't know what to do. And my mother moved in, and she already wasn't feeling him. And it was just like, it was, you know, it was either one of those, it was either going to bring us tighter together, and by God's grace it did, or it was going to, you know, and I was okay with the gonna. So I was like, release me. But the Lord kept saying, I didn't tell you to go anywhere. And I kept saying, oh my gosh, this is like one calamity after another. I'm a baby. I can't deal with this, you know? because
He's like, oh, now you a baby.
yeah. I just wanted, you know, I didn't want somebody to take care of me, and he did. He came
I
in on a white horse and stuff, but then life happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Life happened, and
Life.
it was
Life.
yes, life be lifing. And I was like, whoa. But you know, we just held on tightly
Mm-hmm.
and took care of each other. And we did good. God did good by us. God did good by us.
Onita, then Raquel.
What was the initial question?
Don't even play. Don't even play. You the man who be talking about how they never talk about sex.
Oh yeah, that was the question. Sandra took me back because that was a lot of my childhood. I had very hard time with that, Sandra, to where at least one Monday a month I called out of school and the doctors kind of told my mom the same thing, put her on the pill, and that was a no in our community. You get on the pill, you are basically giving your daughter permission to be promiscuous. That's the way it was treated. And so it was a no, you couldn't do it. The only education I got in the home was don't have sex, it'll ruin your life. That's kind of what I was told. So that's kind of what kind of was in my head. Being the oldest of 5 siblings, having to babysit, that was birth control enough as far as in the physical. I'm not having no kids, even though I know I'm marrying this man, and I was like, I'm gonna have eventually, but I was like, I ain't trying to do that because I only saw sex honestly at that point as you're gonna have a baby, right? Not the beauty of it, the way the other part of how God intended it for us. And so going into the marriage, I want to say I didn't have a lot of healthy conversations with other adults or married people. First of all, a lot of married people that I saw, I would say even in the church, didn't seem to be affectionate at all much. Like some of them didn't even sit by each other. Definitely didn't see them hug or hold hands or even a little peck. And so that, I just didn't have the full extent of kind of what that would be like. As Sandra said, though, we had to have conversations. They got easier later after going through maybe a different marriage retreat or something, because I was too a little bit just shy with talking about it. I later, like I think Victor said last week, sometimes you may get instant feedback from me now, but it's a very sensitive subject, women.
You're not as good as you think you are. Like,
you be cautious and careful how you talk to your man, because I've seen women actually castrate men. Like, we were around some friends and the husband and wife were arguing, and she was like, she said something that I was like, whoa, you just don't do that. Don't ever do that. But I was going to say, talking, we had to start having the conversations, and this came out. We didn't see it in the home. I think it came out. I think Dr. John Trusty did a marriage weekend, and we were talking about intimacy. Even just going into that, learning that intimacy was more than just sex. Because as we connected more here and here, that's when that for women, this here and here, that's when the orgasms come. Okay, for all you out there. I mean, once I got that first one, it was like a Lay's potato chips. I just wanted more and more. Okay.
They have just one. It is mental. That's why I said taking out the trash for me could, I don't have to tell you to take out the trash.
Exactly.
Doing a thing. Yes.
Exactly. And so, and recognizing what things did it for me, because he would send me flowers, at work, which was like it was like, oh my gosh, Victor sent me flowers at work, and that'd be nice. But the other stuff was the real romance was he got out of the bed last, and so I came back to the room. He made the bed, and acts of service is my thing. Okay, a little post-it note left in my lunchbox and say maybe you look beautiful today, or I love you. A text message throughout the day or something, checking in on me, and vice versa. Those are things, because we learned this too through the marriage retreat, that love making starts in the morning. It's not just at night. It's from the time we get up, how we're talking to each other, how we're treating each other, what's happening. That's all happening throughout the day, rather than people you barely seeing each other, not saying anything to each other, not checking in, and then at nighttime you expect, all right, we home now, let's get it on. No, it's a whole day process. And so having conversations, when we started to we even read books. We bought Valentine's Day, they'll sell little dice roll the dice and, and it'll have different things to do in there, but just things to, one, because I will say this, you know what I mean? The world would make it seem like it's better to be promiscuous and out here having sex with multiple partners. And my husband's been in the barbershop, and people be like, yo, man, but it's one woman, yo. I mean, you get tired of that. No, you can still communicate. I mean, you can still learn new ways of doing things. God blessed it. The marriage bed, God blessed it. And so I think that it is a way to connect. Physical touch is a love language for my husband. Women do not weaponize sex. If you're mad at your husband or whatever, y'all reconcile, do what you need to do, but don't weaponize and just make it be like a thing. Wow, you made me mad. We're not doing this today. Like, don't weaponize it. That's a ploy of the devil, honestly, to cut off that connection and physical touch. The other thing I would say in the very beginning, for me, it was all about, we're married now, so I know God had blessed it. That was something I wanted to go into the marriage with, like, knowing God did that. And I just felt at that time, I'm giving myself to my spouse. And I never really heard a man say that. And then he'd be like, I'm doing the same. I'm giving myself to you. And so that connection, and one thing Raquel said, though, in the beginning, Raquel, that first year, kind of like Sandra, I got custody of my two siblings and his brother. But I would say outside of that, because we and I were still fine together. But that first year, whether they were there or not, would have been tumultuous because we had never experienced conflict before we got married and moved in together. So when we had that first real fight, we were like, who are you? Who is this devil that grew out your head? And vice versa. And I did thought it was gonna be like the movies. I literally one time ran out of the house expecting him to chase me and come like here. And let's talk about it. And he didn't. And I was like, oh, I didn't marry that guy.
Foolishness.
It was foolishness. It was foolishness. But it definitely was hard. But I remember in premarital counseling, our pastor said it would be. He said those first 5 years, it was a lot of growing pains that you have, and so stick to it. He's like, if you can get through it, stick to it. And so,
okay, I like that. And I like a lot of what you said, but particularly weaponizing it, but also, that conversation around, boredom because it's the same person and all that, and everything that I've heard from men, really, because I heard a lot more men talk about this in different podcasts or whatever, and they're just like, it's the best sex you'll ever have when you have it with your wife, because first of all, this is a person that you trust. This is a safe place for you. And it's so much more than just a physical act.
Yes.
Be able to, in the same, pastor, he said, he's like, I mean, for real, he's like, we got 5 or 6 good moves and we know that thing's going to happen. He's like, you don't need you. He's like, at the beginning, you might want all this variety and you on the chandelier and all that, but he's like, that just doesn't last. And when you figure out what works and you got your, then you just, and that everybody's going to be satisfied, then he's like, we just keep it moving. So, all right, Raquel.
That intimacy is everything.
yes.
Yes. All right, Raquel, what you got?
I thought my AirPods died for a sec. So, man, it was rough because I was on birth control. But before any of that, I grew up I don't really know how it is with the American churches, but with the Brazilian Adventist church, talking about sex is like a huge taboo. And so I remember
The same.
yeah. So I remember at a very young age, this one Brazilian pastor came to preach. I must have been in middle school. And I remember him saying that sex is not for fun. God made it for procreation. And so I've always had that in my mind growing up. And it's just like, it's not meant to be fun type of thing. And so I had to really change my mind once I got married. But then the first year of marriage was so hard because I was put on birth control because I also had incredibly bad cramps. My cramps were like heavy, 7 days long. First 3 days, I was taking about 7 Advils a day and still nothing. I would miss school. It was bad. And so with the birth control, it helped significantly. But then to me, the major downside was that I had no sex drive whatsoever. It was like so hard for me, like, and I felt bad, first year of marriage, we're kind of expecting like, we can finally do it. Oh my gosh, we can do it. But then it's like,
I don't want to do it.
like, oh, I'm doing it. Oh, I have homework. Oh, I'm tired. And like, even like, no matter how long, like we would kind of do like the foreplay, it was just like, I can't. And I didn't know it was the birth control affecting me until years later that my doctor was like, oh yeah, whoever prescribed you on this birth control, it lowers your estrogen, which is what your sex drive is. And so I needed to go up, and this thing was bringing it down. And so because of that, it caused so much damage to like me being like, am I not sexually attracted to my husband? Like, what is going on? And then not only that, but then like when we were trying to do it, sex would be so painful for me. And then I would talk to my friends like, is it painful for you guys too? They're like, oh yeah, at the beginning it was, but after that it wasn't. I'm like, okay, so there's something wrong. So I would always think like, yo, there is something wrong with me. So it gets to a point that like every time we would try to do it, I'd be like, no, I don't want to, because I'm not in the mood, or like it's not gonna work, or it's gonna hurt, and this and this. So I always had an excuse coming up to it. Eventually I had to like change my mindset. I started reading more books, listening to more podcasts, reading more of the Bible, and just learning that what I was taught at church is the complete opposite of what it actually did. God created this. It's a beautiful thing that you share with your spouse. It's an intimate moment where you learn about each other. You give yourself to your spouse. And so I had to change that. And sadly, I was on birth control up until like recently, but I would push myself to do it. Like what Renita said, like it starts in the morning. Like if I knew, then I'd be like, okay, today's the day. He only has one class, or his schedule isn't busy. So let's start. So let's start. And then by the end of the day, we have like, some romantic candles or whatever, get in the vibe for it. So I would put myself out there to like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to put in the schedule or something. We're going to do it. Because then it would end up being like, we'd probably just like be intimate once a month. And it's like, that's not what it's supposed to be. And so that like really affected me. And so eventually, we started working on it. And so once we eventually got the hang of it, it's like, man, this is awesome. Because we eventually started like experimenting, like what we like, what we don't like, what works best, what doesn't work best. So, and then you kind of just learn, and it's great. It's kind of, I think Victor was the one that said it last time. He's like, when both of you get to the finish line, it's like, oh, yeah. It's like, we did it. So yeah, like it was a huge learning process for me. And I feel bad because like still this day, I like poor Ben, like he's a trooper because, I think he said it. He's like, yeah, I wasn't a virgin by choice. It was just like, it's just how it happened. But like, it's just, I'm very thankful for him, for his patience working with me in this birth control. If I only known back what I know now, like I would have been gone like 1 month into it. But yeah.
No, I think that's so good. Everything you said was so important.
Yes.
Because, first of all, sex is different for women than it is for men. And there's so many other things that go on with our body that they don't have to contend with, because they're not thinking about your period and your pain and what you're doing for that's not on their radar necessarily, because they don't have to think about those things. And so I think that's important that you all brought that up for people who are listening, for us to say, hey, these things actually alter your hormones so that you mentally may desire it, but physically your body's like, no, not really interested, or it hurts, or all of these different things. Like you're saying, I really got married and I was thinking I'm going to really want to have sex with my husband all the time, and now I really don't. So what's that? And not really understanding and even advocating for ourselves around with doctors who don't necessarily take care of us the way that we should, or give us the information that we should, and asking those questions, or even saying, are there questions that I don't know to ask? because you wouldn't have known to ask that necessarily. You just wanted to be out of the pain. There's all these other things that come with that.
Lorraine, can I add one thing to that too?
Yeah.
Because also, if you're coming into the marriage where you've had that pain, but then there's also the previous pain of possible abuse of some kind of way.
Okay. Yeah.
Or some type of trauma in its sexually, whatever. That's a whole nother, I want to say baggage, that a hurdle that you may have to get over because you're with this person, right? And there's a trust there and it's a going, but sometimes people begin to freeze up or become rigid because of that, not being over the trauma previously. So I would suggest to anybody in the marriage, right, even right now, or planning to be, and if you've experienced any type of sexual trauma, to do the work on, being a counselor, whatever you can need to do to also deal with that, because you may think I'm over it because I'm dating now or whatever, but some things will come out when you're with your spouse. It will come out later in the marriage if you've not fully been healed of it. And so I just wanted to add that piece.
Important. And I think what I'm going to say adds to that in the sense of communication. You all kind of talked about that. And it's so important. It's important if there's been abuse in your history that your partner know that, whether you're the husband or the wife, because it happens as well. But communication about sex and intimacy and what that means and what I like and what I don't like and all of those things are so important. And when you come from a foundation of a belief system that in many respects refuses to be open and honest and talk about it and teach about it so that you are more prepared, you're never completely prepared to be married or intimate. You're never completely prepared for anything. You go to college for 8 years and then you try to be a resident. You don't really know. You're just, you're learning on the job. Okay. Yes. But you don't want someone coming from high school and doing surgery on you. You don't even want them so there's preparation that we all can make in whatever the goal is. Right now we're talking about marriage and family and sexuality. There's preparation that we can take now that we know, I should learn some things. I should read some books. I should listen to some podcasts. I should listen to Live, Love, and Marry Wiser because they're talking about it. All these things to help us know the questions to ask or know the things to talk about, to know, because you may not necessarily get your answer from this program, but now there are questions that you should be asking that a lot of us didn't know or wouldn't have thought of before we heard someone say, oh yeah, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, I should do that. So I think that's important. We are go ahead.
I think this conversation is so cool. But I think just now, this is my first time thinking about the bond that sexual act creates, because you guys are talking about more than just the act of having sex, right? Because when I thought about the bonding, or actually I probably never thought about it before, but anyway, in this conversation, when it crossed my mind, I'm thinking about, your bodies coming together, being one. I'm thinking about the closeness of your bodies, right? But you guys are talking about, the communication around it, and it speaks to me to the commitment that you guys have towards not only becoming intimate or that intimacy for the sake of pleasing each other sexually, but you're also caring for each other emotionally, attending to, like what Onita said, those things of the past that could be contributing to the way that we experience this, now, and being patient, as you guys kind of work through and figure out what in the world is going on that's causing us not to connect in the way that we thought that we would. So one of the things that I really like when I hear about sex is that, we've always heard that it's like the glue that bonds the couple together, right? But even better than that, what I heard, because I'm not sure that that's 100% true, and you guys have to speak to that, but that sex is more, it's not the glue that holds the marriage together, but it's just like honey that makes the relationship sweeter.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like that.
Just for the record, sex is for procreation and recreation.
Bars.
Making love.
I used to think about that I don't know that I came up a long time ago because I heard someone say something crazy like that. I'm just like, no way. No. Because we know that there were a few days before Cain came along and Adam and Eve were doing some stuff. So, let's be realistic. It wouldn't be so pleasurable if it wasn't for pleasure as well.
The book, Song of Solomon, is
makes it clear, right?
Yeah. There's some macking and some love making. Yeah. I think, don't you think that it's not discussed and it's like, no. It's because of fornication. Is that what that is? And then all of a sudden it's supposed to be like, it's beautiful because you're married.
Right.
I think
it's like to discourage, folks before they get married.
I think that's part of it, Sandra. But honestly, I feel personally, I think that the reason is because we've allowed Satan to steal all of God's stuff and claim it.
Yes.
Sex belongs to God.
Yes.
And we've said, because Satan has distorted it, now we don't want to talk. No, take it back from him.
Yes.
The church should be talking about it more than anybody else in a godly way, the way that God intended it to be.
I agree.
Because when Pastor Ross and Jeremy Anderson and all these people talk about it, and Eric Thomas, they talk about it in a way that is with one woman that they've been with for many years, that they love, and how beautiful it is and how amazing it is. When people start hearing that, they're going to have a different perspective of marriage. They're going to have a different perspective of relationships, of sex, and they're going to have a different perspective of God. And as a church, it is our responsibility in all aspects of our life to represent the beauty of God. When you're married and you represent God that way, when you're single and you represent God with withholding that and purity, because that honors him, not because of some movement or whatever, purity, obviously, but there were some problems with that movement. But when we say, I'm going to hold my body for my husband because that honors my father, now we're representing not having sex in the right way, and we're representing sex in the right way. And then there's so many other things that we need to take back from the enemy and say, no, this belongs to God.
Yes.
And you can't have it.
Yes.
All right, off my soapbox. As we wrap this up, here's my question for you all. What are 3 benefits of marriage for women? And I'm gonna start with Onita.
Say 3 benefits of marriage for women is 1, a lifelong partner to be there with you, to hopefully, if you're blessed to be able to do that, have children and raise them and build a home with together and be a best friend. Another marriage would be, I think it's another benefit would be, I think it reminds us of the relationship that God wants to have with us as well, and giving our life for another person and compromising and being respectful of him and he loving us so much as Christ would give our life, that he would give his life for us. And so that it gives us a good view of our Heavenly Father as well. And then thirdly, I think we're wired that I feel like God intended us to have a partner, and to be, when you don't have that, there is a yearning in us, period, from birth that only God can feel. Anyway, that we have to be with him. But I think there's another aspect of you want another person in life to be able to walk with. And so I think marriage helps us to have that other yearning fulfilled as well, and being in companionship, and having somebody to do life with who helps be a mirror to you, to actually, holds up a mirror to you, to also to say, again, we talked about potential earlier, but here, to remind you of these great things that you sometimes don't even see in yourself. Your spouse can kind of help encourage that and pull that out of you, and vice versa. And so I would say those are the benefits that I can come off with the top of my head, since I didn't get sent this question earlier.
The men didn't get it either, so. Andra, I'm gonna go to you.
All right, well, I'm gonna say, I didn't know it was gonna be so, and I have said to him over the course of our 30 plus years, 35 years, that I really didn't know how he was going to be a best friend. Like, I didn't know. Like, for real, he was going to be a best friend, because, you know, you got a girlfriend who you're going to be your best friend, right? And so I didn't know how that was going to happen, but it can't help but happen with all that you go through. So it teaches you, and the benefit is maybe not being selfish or all about oneself. Teaches you about sacrifice. And it also helps with that whole love piece in the sacrificial way. Like, you've got to really give of yourself in order for it to work. And putting somebody else ahead of you, and them putting you ahead of themselves, right? And so then, like, the forgiveness piece is important to me. Like, because you know that expression, forgive and forget, right? And I don't know if we're supposed to forget. Like, God throws things into the sea of forgetfulness, but I don't know if we're supposed to, because if our partner, a spouse, forgives us of things, right, or we forgive them, but if it's still somewhere here, it keeps me mindful of how God forgives, right? So like no one, my husband, could ever offend me as much as I have at some point in my life offended God. And so forgiveness is a huge lesson in this journey of how to love beyond things and want it to continue, right?
Yes.
So sacrifice, forgiveness, along with the best friend, you know, along the journey, because I just and I don't know if that's for everybody. You know, I don't know if everybody's supposed to. I don't know if that's what God intended for everybody to find somebody. I don't know. But it's just so I don't know. Was that two points? Is that enough?
That was three.
That felt like three. All right. Yes, that's good. Raquel.
So I think one thing that we all share in common is definitely the whole best friend part. Ben is my best friend. I literally tell him like everything, like down to like my day, what I had for lunch, like even the stuff that he doesn't care about or doesn't need to know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he knows.
Same.
And I just love that. I just love, you know, sharing that. You know, you're waking up and you see your spouse next to you and you just already start chatting and you're like, oh my gosh, what do you plan for your day? You know, this and this and that. And I just love that. You know, I think now that he's transitioning from pastoral to aviation, I think that's going to be incredibly hard because I'm so used to always having him with me constantly 24/7, like even going to Walmart, he's always with me. So now it's going to be a huge change. And I have to start getting used to that because he's going to be gone for so long, but he still will forever be my best friend no matter where in the US he will be. I think another thing is that one of the big benefits is that I felt like into marriage, I became a better person for him. I started noticing a huge change. And even my parents started noticing change too. And I think one example that I guess I never noticed until they mentioned it was that I live in a Brazilian household where everyone talks loud, but like yelling loud. And sometimes it can be kind of stressful. But then with Ben, living up in Michigan in our own apartment, it's like he's just so calm because that's how his family is. And so I started like grabbing onto that calmness and being more relaxed. And so when we'd come down to like Christmas breaks and stuff like that, my family would be like, "Wow, Raquel, you're so calm. Like you're changed. Like you're like you can see like you're a whole changed person." It's like, yeah, and so part of the stuff that I do, part of the stuff that I do, I want to do it because I want to be a better person. I want to be a better wife for my husband. And so I had to put on like a different lens on once I got married. And then I think the last one of the other benefits, man, I only thought of two. I should have thought of the third one. I feel like the third one would be like we just grew individually as a person, and we grew obviously together. I feel like these last couple of years have been so hard on the both of us. Like from the point we stepped foot in Michigan, Berrien Springs, August 1st, 2 years or 2 weeks being married, like from that day on, it was just like hard. A little background to that. Basically, we had just moved in. I just got out of the shower, had a towel wrapped around me, and I saw someone just peeking in through the bathroom window, just staring at me. So from that point on, it was just so hard. And I feel like the devil has been like challenging us every single day. And even up until like now, recently, these past couple months have been so hard trying to figure out like what's the next step, or like what are we gonna do? But I think together we grew as a couple and we grew individually. I've learned so much about myself through him, and same goes to him. So those are my three.
Wow, I love that.
I love all those.
That's good. Yes.
Yeah, I love all those. Renee, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you think the benefits of marriage are that makes you want to do it? I can start.
No. Actually, I have an answer to that, and I'm taking it from these ladies here.
Mm-hmm.
The words that I was hearing as you guys were talking, I was hearing the word pruning. I was hearing the word refining. I'm not sure if those are the same or not. Lorraine, does that qualify as what we call a same?
Same. That's good.
No, a pruning in the sense of, I think,
It's not really the same. It's similar, but not the same.
Similar, but not the same. So Victor said last week, nobody can throw you off kilter like your partner, right? And when you guys are coming into the marriage, you are bringing, your ways, your history and all of that into the relationship. And as you guys are trying to figure out what works for you, there are some things that are going to have to fall off. Right.
Yes.
So I may have never thought of that before. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm looking forward to that because just like so many of us, we pray the prayer all the time. Lord, show me me. And one of the best ways that I actually have learned for him to do that is through through your relationships. So I like the pruning, and then the refining is along that same line. The Bible says we shall come forth as pure gold, but we got to go through some things.
Come on, Renee.
There's some heat involved.
Wait, I know. And what you guys, I don't know why I'm getting choked up because I like everything that you guys have said, but also it's a relationship that if it's done right and with the right intentions, it's to introduce you to love. Yes. Like we think we know what it is.
That's right.
But love is all good. It's all good. There's nothing bad about love. And so I guess what I'm hearing, you guys saying is that you're learning how to Sandra said, like, how to forgive, how to communicate, how to sacrifice, how to be more patient, how to accept, this person for who they are, even as we continue to grow together. So those are some things going forward. If I can get it out of my throat. that I will definitely look forward to. I know that they have already said it's not going to be perfect. It's going to have its challenges, but that's life, and that's
right.
the world in which we live in. But if you're doing it right, all of these things will be doable, and they're going to make us and the relationship better. And what we, as a couple, if God sees that, for me in the future, we say we want to make the world a better place. This unit will do that if we do it right.
And we're trying to get each other to heaven.
And we're trying to
Tommy says that all the time. Like, it's not just about being happy, but it's cultivating lives that lead us to a holy
right.
place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was very beautiful, Renee, what you said.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Yes.
If I could.
Well,
Yeah.
now I have to go after that. So that's awesome.
Let them use you, Renee, Lorraine.
For me, what I think of is partnership first. I have spent my whole adult life basically doing things by myself. I have friends, and you go out to dinner or whatever, but like actual life things, I do them by myself. I don't have anyone to share them with. I don't have someone to tell about it in the sense that they are bought in. Like, you can tell your friends and they are happy and they celebrate, but when you tell your partner, it impacts their life too. So there's a buy-in there that's different than telling anyone else. And so I just in ministry, like when I went to New Zealand, I wanted to have I'm not supposed to be the one that cries. I wanted to have that person. There were male deans too, so I'm like, that would have been awesome if that's something that we could have done together. Every time I travel alone pretty much. And just in the big things and the little things, I just desire to have a partner to share that with and know that I've got his back and he's got mine, and we're doing this together for the highs and the lows. Friendship, when I was reading my my profile last week, that I want somebody to have Sabbath school with, even though I don't really go that much anymore, but I'm trying to get back to that. I'm committing to try to get back to that, to have Bible study. Like, I do small groups here, but I do them by myself. I lead them out by myself. Like, I want a partner who we do that together. I used to be the youth leader. Like, I want ministry and I want my best friend to be that person. I can share and tell things that other people don't know. Like, my friends know a lot of stuff about me, but I want someone that I can tell everything to, and that I trust, and that's the same, and that he does the same. That we laugh together, and we're also quiet together, because I don't want to be talking all the time. Like, it's on my nerves. So I'm just like, that we can just be in each other's space, and I can just look across the room, and he looks up and he smiles and I smile, and then we go back to not talking, and we just doing our own thing. Like, I've pictured that for my whole life. Like, that's the perfect Sunday for me. And then someone to pour into, because so many times I have not just friends, but like male friends, and I'm like, I want to give them so much that God has given me, but you have to hold back because they haven't earned to get all of that, and they don't even necessarily want all of that. And there's just some things that you pour in, that you help that person build, that you lift them up, that you help them be that person that they want to be. When Onita was talking about that mirror, to say, hey, you can do it. I want to be that mirror. obviously you want that for yourself, but for me, like I spend a lot of time thinking about how I want to love somebody versus how they love me. Because I think when we partner with God in identifying that person, then that becomes something that's easier to identify. Like that's a reciprocal thing. But I'm not just like, well, I want him to be this for me and I want him to be that for me. I'm just like, I think about all that I want to be for him. So those are my things. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to add for single women desiring marriage. I remember our friend Tracy used to, well, let me start with me. So when I would say, oh, I want to get married and I want a man who does this and who does that, who's this way and that way and this way and that way. And Tracy was just like, you're looking at it all wrong. And I'm like, huh, what do you mean? Or whatever, there's nothing wrong with what I said, but she's just like, instead of you, concentrating on what it is that you want that person to bring to the table, we need to think about what it is that we want to bring to the table. Who do we want to be for this person? And I think, Lorraine, one of your old seminar titles, was it, are you the person,
the one that you are looking for is looking for?
Are you the one you're looking for is looking for? Yeah. So we should put more effort into becoming that person, in addition to all of the other considerations. I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Oh, also, for young ladies who are out looking for a husband or whatever, or excuse me, the young ladies who want to be a wife, you also want to make sure that you're getting with a man who wants to be a husband, not a man who wants a wife, because those are two totally different things.
I love that. Sandra, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it was about balance, like balancing each other out. I think it's important to have someone that helps you with that, and that you do for them, because that's that pruning, I guess, and refining. Yeah, I think that's good to be open to that and to want to do that for your person.
All right. Well, let me wrap up here with our scripture. And I think this is kind of what we did today. Titus 2:4-5, that they admonish the young women, talking to the older women, that they admonish the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste homemakers, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be blasphemed. And I think that what I appreciate about what you all have done here is that at the levels that you are, 5.5 years, almost 24 years, 36 years of marriage, and longer, dating, not a lot longer for some of you, but nevertheless, that you have grown, you have learned, you have failed, you have succeeded, and then you have given us the privilege of the knowledge and the experience that you have in a very open and transparent way. And even though Raquel's the youngest one on this call, she's still an older woman in the sense of her marriage, and she's able to teach other women coming behind or who are older than her, who just haven't been married yet or married 1 year. So I think that when our churches get back to this counsel to be teaching about these things, and I think our marriages and our families will just be a lot more the way that God intended them to be. So thank you all for all that you have shared and for being willing to come on here and for coming one more time. You all, thank you for hanging in with us. But on Friday, special Friday episode, this Friday, the 15th at 6:15, we will have the couples together, and we have more questions, and we're going to talk about more things because this subject almost could not be exhausted. As you can see, we already spent 4 hours on it individually, but we promise it won't be 4 hours on Friday, but it'll be longer than 2, I'm sure. But everybody talk. But I just thank you for your time, and I thank you for just being good examples to us who are desiring to be part of the conversation on that side of the conversation.
Yes, thank you, ladies.
God bless you all, and we will pray for your continued blessing and success in your marriage and your family.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And Renee, thank you. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless.
Good night.